Welcome to the Business of Apparel podcast. This is the place to learn how to start and scale your own apparel brand and fill it with loyal customers for years to come. I'm your host, Rachel Erickson, owner and CEO of Unmarked Street, and I can't wait to share this episode with you. Welcome back to the Business of Apparel podcast. This week, I wanted to tap into the number 2 most consistent question that I get asked ever since starting Unmarked Street and the Business of Apparel. Last week, we addressed my number 1 most consistent question, which was all about my PMP certification and how you can go out and get that if you're interested in it and whether or not I think that that was something worthy of doing for my career. And so if you haven't listened to that one, you can go back to last week's episode and check it out now. But the number 2 question that is most consistent that we receive here at Unmarked Street is regarding international versus domestic manufacturing for the apparel industry. So a lot of people, I think, are really wondering what are the differences and what are the pros and cons between manufacturing your goods overseas versus manufacturing them here in the United States. And so while I am not necessarily a sourcing expert, I am not going to necessarily give myself that tag because there are people out there who have a lot more information than me. I have been working with different sourcing partners, with different factory partners overseas in various different areas. And I have started working with a few different partners in the US since launching Unmarked Street. So even though I wouldn't really call myself an operations or a sourcing master, there is quite a wealth of knowledge that I have just by being in proximity to those departments for 2 decades of my career and by working with so many different partners throughout that career. So the first part of this conversation that usually comes up is regarding cost. Now, people definitely understand that manufacturing overseas, especially in several of the different Asia regions, are going to give you a better product or unit cost. So where if you were developing something, let's say in Europe, like I've done a lot of development in Italy. So we're going to take like an Italy price and a USA price, which might be, let's say, somewhere around $15 for a specific product. That same product might only cost you $7 coming out of China or coming out of Vietnam. And so there are some advantages there. However, you do need to make sure that you're considering all of the additional fees that come at you when you are manufacturing and importing goods from an international manufacturer. So for example, I'm going to throw out the idea, something that I am very familiar with, creating a polyester cycling jersey, women's polyester cycling jersey. We're going to use that as an example. Now, when we assign customs codes and duty rates to that piece, we need to go to the U.S. Customs handbook that helps us define an HTS code to this garment. And the HTS code for a women's top that fully zips open and closed at the center front and is made of a man-made fiber. Those are all the details that go into assigning an HTS code. A garment of that type is going to cost a 30% duty rate coming from China to the United States. So again, you also need to know where your garment is coming from and where it's going to. So 32%. So take that, like, let's say, again, if you were manufacturing in Italy or the US, we were going to say it was $15. Let's say if you're manufacturing in China, that's going to be just a $7 piece, but you are also going to be taking 32% of that $7 and tacking it on top just for your customs and duty rates. So even though it sounds like it's a much lower price to develop your goods in China or an Asia region, because you are adding all of those customs fees to it, sometimes we find that the prices become very, very close compared to being able to manufacture domestically. And there are a few other international options that will give you a 0% duty rate. We have access to the CAFTA region, which is the Central America trade agreement that we are a part of here in the US. We also have NAFTA, which is the North American trade agreement. So if we were doing manufacturing in Canada, Mexico, or any of the Central America countries that are part of those agreements, we can apply a 0% duty rate to our goods, which helps it stay more local. And it prevents you from having to pay all of those customs fees that go on top of your unit cost from the factory. So that can be one thing that you really need to consider if you don't understand how customs fees work according to the unit cost coming from your factory. A really good place to start is to ask your manufacturer, ask your factory rep if they can help you determine what your customs rates and your duty fees are going to be. They can probably also help you assign appropriate HTS codes so that your documentation when you're importing all of those garments is correct, which will be important for you. And so understanding that there are additional fees coming from working internationally can really help to level things out. Now, I'm going to bring Italy back up here because if you are manufacturing in Italy who has a higher unit cost, similar sometimes to what we manufacture here in the US, because their minimum wage fees for their workers in Italy are quite a bit higher. We then also have to apply customs and duty fees to any goods being imported from Italy to the US. So this is an instance where if you're manufacturing in France or Italy or Portugal or any of those beautiful European regions, it can be wonderful to go on trips there and do production run visits, but you are probably going to be paying the most to import your goods from one of those countries right now because of the high cost and because of the duty rates that get tacked on top of it. The next conversation that usually comes up is regarding shipping. And when we get into shipping, this comes into two key areas, which is cost and timing. And you know, I love to talk cost and timing. I can talk budgets and I can talk calendars all day long. And so this is where shipping becomes a big play for you. Now, if you are shipping goods from the Asia regions or you're shipping goods from Europe, it is going to cost you quite a bit more to get those either on a boat or on a plane than it would if you were manufacturing locally and you only needed to get goods either on a truck or on a train here in the US. So this is yet another fee that you need to consider if you're going to be manufacturing internationally. And so it's yet another reason why sometimes manufacturing domestically, or even better, super locally, can be of advantage to you because these fees also then become much lower or they go away. I've seen a couple of different clients where they're able to actually manufacture in the town where they live. And so instead of needing to pay any shipping fees, they get in their own company truck or their own company car. They go over, they pick up the goods, and then they take it to their own warehouse. And so transit fees are almost negligible in those different instances. Are you frustrated by feeling like an outsider in your own industry? You're not alone. I spent years feeling the same way. Are you tired of endless research and you can only learn this stuff by getting a job in fashion advice? Me too. That's why I created the Business of Apparel online course. My years of insider knowledge condensed into video tutorials, demos, and downloads. Learn at your own pace, no fluff. Just key topics like building target profiles and mastering financials. This information is genuinely unavailable anywhere else. Grow your brand, become an apparel industry aficionado, and unlock millions in potential revenue. The value? Over $50,000 with millions potential for your brand. Don't miss out. Sign up for the Business of Apparel online course today at thebusinessofapparel.com/course. When it comes to timing, this is definitely something that you need to consider if you're going to be shipping or manufacturing from overseas. So, for example, if you are going to pay the most amount that you can in shipping, you can air ship your goods, and we typically allow for about a week. So let's say that you have your FOB price, your factory is getting it to the nearest airport for you. It's getting ready to get on a plane. From that X factory date, so it's exiting your factory, we typically put about a week in our calendars to plan for air shipping. And so that gets it to our warehouse in about a week. But it is going to be usually quite a bit more expensive to ship via air. The alternative, if you're shipping internationally, is to ship by boat. And so that will typically run you about 45 days. Sometimes it's faster, but to be safe, I always recommend that my clients put 45 days in their calendar if they are planning to ship by boat. Now, you can save quite a bit of money by shipping by boat over shipping by air, but it is going to cost you more in time. And so if you don't have that extra 45 days built into your calendar and you haven't checked all the boxes and approved everything when you needed to, that 45 days could be something that is going to break your business. And I've seen that happen more often than not, where there is a delivery date, there's a launch date that we need to hit, and all of a sudden that window that we were planning for to ship by boat is closing and it's becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. And so we end up having to pay the extra money to ship by air. So this is yet another case why putting a very healthy calendar and timeline against your brand can really help save you money. And the third key topic that I really talk about with people when they're asking me about international versus domestic shipping is regarding quality. And I think there are a lot of different instances out there where people are getting information that quality by manufacturing internationally can be a lower standard. And I am here to just totally debunk that. That is absolutely not true. I'm here to say that I have worked with some of the most amazing, best manufacturers that I've worked with in my entire career out of China. And so any rumors that you are actually hearing about all China goods being made of poor quality is not true. You can absolutely find great manufacturing partners and high quality factories in any region. It's just going to take a great connection of someone who has worked there before. It's also going to take some research to make sure that you're finding the right places. On the flip side of that, a lot of people really believe that made in USA means high quality. And while I do believe that that is absolutely true, there are opposite ends of the scale in every single region. So it is not guaranteed that if you are manufacturing in the US that you are going to get the highest quality sewing or the highest quality product. It is up to you to make sure that you have an ability to quality check your garments and make sure that whatever factory you choose, whether it's international or domestic, is hitting those standards for you. And so that comes to the last point that I want to make today, especially regarding international shipping and international manufacturing. I really like to have a rule, and this has pissed off quite a few of my managers in the past. I actually got denied a promotion for this once because I decided that I didn't want to go travel to a specific area. And I was told that if I wasn't willing to travel to wherever they wanted to send me, then I wasn't worthy of a promotion that I was up for. Anyway, I really believe that if you are going to be manufacturing in any area, so even if that's Wisconsin of the United States, or whether that's Pakistan, or whether that's India, or whether that's Turkey, or whether that's Sweden or Norway or China or Russia or Bangladesh or Croatia, any of those regions, El Salvador, I've manufactured goods in Medellin, Colombia. If you are not willing to get on a plane or get in a car and go to that country and view the production of your garments yourself, if there's something about that region that doesn't make you comfortable to go there, then to me, that is the biggest red flag of why you might not want to manufacture in that area. There are always going to be cases where being boots on the ground, getting yourself into a factory to check on production, make sure that quality is what you need it to be, or rapidly develop something. We do that all the time in the apparel industry where something is just not quite coming together and we need to hit a deadline. So in order for us to get it done quickly, we all jump on a plane and we go somewhere and we're banging out fit sessions in the factory with our representatives day after day after day. It eliminates months from our calendar to be able to do that. But if you're not willing to travel to that factory because you're not willing to travel to that area, it could definitely be a detriment to you and your business. So even though it is not necessary to travel to your factory all the time, I'm going to definitely debunk myself there. It is not necessary to travel all the time. And I'm going to say, I haven't traveled to see a factory in a couple of years now. So it's been a while. And we're still doing great work with all of the factories that I'm a part of. However, that to me just seems to be a really healthy gauge of whether the partnership between you and that factory is going to be something that can be long-term and something that can be curated and built over time into a relationship that you both feel comfortable being together in person and really manufacturing together for long-term plans. There are absolutely pros and cons to every single factory, every single situation. All I'm going to say to kind of close this out is that it is up to you to do your research and to figure out what the best costing scenario is going to be for you, depending on the kind of product that you want to make, the area that you're looking at, where you live and where your warehouse is located. All of that is going to bring about different costing scenarios. So you really need to do diligence and do all of that work up front. Work on your budget. Make sure you understand your numbers up front before you really sign on with the factory. Ask them what their MOQs are. That should be your number one question when you're going out and sourcing new manufacturing partners. What are your MOQs? Can I hit those MOQs? Can I buy as many as are your minimum? Or do I need to go find a different place? There are amazing places all over the world who are happy to work with you. And there are also places all over the world who are going to be difficult to work with. So you need to find what that is for yourself. And if you are looking for any help in finding sourcing partners, I have lots of great recommendations for you. And we are also here for you at Unmarked Street. If this episode was helpful for you in any way, I recommend that you please leave us a review. And if you are watching us on YouTube, please make sure to like, subscribe, and set up your notifications so you never miss an episode in the future. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to the Business of Apparel podcast. I would so appreciate hearing your thoughts on the show. And if you know someone who could benefit from it, please share it with them. My biggest desire is to help other apparel professionals understand the nuances of our industry so we can all work toward making better product for a better world. If you would like to connect further, I'd love to invite you to send me a message through my website, thebusinessofapparel.com, where I do weekly trainings through my YouTube video channel, a weekly newsletter, blog articles, and so many more resources to help you start and scale a profitable apparel brand. This podcast is produced by Box 7 Media, who I cannot speak highly enough of. If you're looking to start your own podcast, you can reach out to Jeremy at Box 7 Media on LinkedIn anytime.